My sister slapped my son for singing, denied it when I confronted her, and my parents accused him of being sensitive and ruining the trip. They didn't know the microphone was still recording that will ruined her life. My name is Scott Jones, and for as long as I can remember, I lived in the shadow of my younger sister Gracie. She was the quiet one, the graceful one, the example my parents used whenever I laughed too loudly, questioned too much, or failed to meet their ever-moving standards. Scott, why can't you be more like Gracie? Scott, Gracie never causes trouble. Scott, Gracie makes us proud. Those words followed me from childhood into adulthood, even after I built a decent life for myself and became a father to my son Joshua, the one person I swore would never feel the way I did growing up. Before I continue this story, please drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to know how far this story has traveled. Grace's rise was polished and intentional. She became a corporate speaker, a public advocate for child confidence and emotional safety. The irony of that title still makes my chest tighten. She curated her image carefully, soft voice, controlled smiles, inspirational quotes, while behind closed doors she thrived on control, humiliation, and quiet cruelty, something my parents always refused to see, or chose not to see. When Gracie announced a family legacy retreat in Paris, complete with a professional videographer and speeches about our upbringing, I felt dread immediately. It felt performative, staged, like a trap dressed as a gift. But my son Joshua was excited, 8 years old, bright, gentle, and obsessed with singing. Singing was his joy, his way of taking up space in a world that often told kids like him to be smaller. I agreed to go for his sake, believing I could endure a few days for his happiness. Paris was beautiful on the surface, perfect lighting, elegant venues, carefully planned moments. Gracie loved it. She controlled the schedule, the conversations. Even when people laughed, everything was content. Everything was brand building. On the second evening, Joshua began singing softly in the lounge, just a happy child enjoying himself. The room was quiet, and that's when I saw Grace's face change, irritation flashing across it like a crack in glass. Before I could stand, before I could even speak, Gracie walked up to Joshua and slapped him, not hard enough to leave a mark, but hard enough to silence him. The sound echoed louder than his singing ever had. Joshua froze, eyes wide, then burst into tears and ran straight to me. My hands were shaking as I held him, demanding to know what she had done. Gracie denied it immediately, said he was being dramatic, said she only tapped him to calm him down. My parents stepped in instantly, defending her, accusing Joshua of being too sensitive, telling me not to ruin the trip. That was when something shifted in me permanently, not just anger, but clarity. What none of them knew was that Grace's husband Samuel had set up multiple microphones for the family video, professional grade, meant to capture candid moments. One of them had recorded everything, the singing, the slap, Grace's sharp whisper telling Joshua to shut up, the sound of his crying, all of it. I said nothing that night. I comforted my son, packed our things quietly, and waited. Back in Ohio, life moved fast. Gracie returned to her role as a keynote speaker for child confidence initiatives, smiling on stages, preaching safety and empowerment. While Joshua struggled, he stopped singing, stopped humming, his voice reduced to whispers. Therapy helped, time helped, but what healed him most was knowing I believed him completely. A few days later, I sent the audio recording to Grace's workplace board, to the non-profit organizations she represented, to the conference coordinators who had booked her as a speaker. I didn't add commentary. I let the audio speak, raw, undeniable, impossible to explain away. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Gracie was suspended, then terminated, sponsors dropped her, speaking engagements were cancelled, her carefully built reputation collapsed under the weight of her own voice. Recordings surfaced of past complaints. Former colleagues and even relatives reached out to me privately, sharing stories of her cruelty. Stories they were too afraid to tell before, afraid of being dismissed the way I always was. My parents called me in rage, screaming, demanding I go to her workplace to retract everything, accusing me of destroying the family, of being jealous, of exaggerating. I listened calmly, then told them I was done explaining, done protecting abusers, done shrinking myself and my child to preserve their illusion of harmony. I blocked their numbers that same night. The revenge didn't stop there. Gracie tried to sue for defamation, only for the case to be dismissed when the recording was verified. Samuel filed for divorce shortly after, citing emotional abuse and manipulation. Her social circle evaporated. Friends who once praised her distanced themselves. She moved out of state quietly. No farewell post, no explanation, just silence. The very thing she weaponized against others now swallowing her whole. Joshua slowly found his voice again, first humming in the car, then singing softly at home, then proudly at his 8th birthday party. A celebration I hosted surrounded by people who showed up. Friends, cousins, former relatives who apologized for not speaking sooner. The room was full of laughter, music, protection, and love. As Joshua sang, confident and unafraid, I realized something profound. Family isn't blood, it's action. It's who stands between you and harm, who listens when you speak, who believes you when it's inconvenient. Gracie built her life on silence and image. I took it down with truth and patience, and I would do it again without hesitation. Because revenge isn't always loud or violent. Sometimes it's simply refusing to lie anymore, and choosing your child over people who never chose you. Gracie thought losing her job was the worst of it, but the real consequences came later, quietly, the way she used to hurt people. Her name became a warning, not an inspiration. Conference planners stopped returning emails. Parents' groups removed her old videos. Clips of her speeches were taken down one by one. And when people searched her name, the first thing they found was not applause, but questions. The non-profit she once used as a shield released a statement distancing themselves from her. Donors pulled out. Projects she had attached her identity to collapsed, and the organization dissolved within months. People who had defended her publicly went silent, protecting themselves the way my parents once protected her, by pretending they saw nothing. My parents tried one last time, showing up unannounced at my door, faces tight with anger and shame, not to ask about Joshua, not to apologize, but to demand I fix things. They said Gracie was not herself anymore. That she was drinking, isolated, bitter. I told them calmly that none of that was my responsibility, and that their silence had a price. I closed the door while they were still talking. Joshua overheard part of that exchange. Later that night he asked me if he did something wrong. That question broke me in a way nothing else had. I held him and promised him that telling the truth is never wrong, even when adults don't like it. Months passed, then a year, and life grew lighter. Joshua joined a school choir, sang his first solo, and the applause he received felt like justice in its purest form. Not revenge, but restoration. His confidence returned stronger than before, because it was built on safety, not fear. The final twist came when Samuel reached out. He told me Gracie had tried to rewrite the story publicly, claiming stress, misunderstanding, even blaming Joshua. But the recording followed her everywhere. No platform would touch her. No editor would clean her past. The truth had become permanent. On Joshua's 8th birthday, surrounded by people who chose us, I realized the revenge was complete. Not because Gracie fell, but because my son rose, because the cycle ended with me, because silence lost. And if Gracie ever tells her version of the story, I won't stop her, because the difference now is simple. Hers will be words, mine has proof, and my son's voice, once silenced in Paris, now fills every room we walk into. Please like, share and subscribe for more stories. Thank you.